Very good afternoon, all. Now we have a session on hands-on workshop with LATEX by Dr. Krishna Kumar Kishore, Vice Principal of Ahalia School of Engineering and Technology, Palakkad. He received his bachelor, master, and PhD degrees in electrical engineering from the University of Toronto, Canada. He has authored 9 papers in referred journals and conferences. Welcome, sir.
All right.
The session is over to you.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you, Shweta. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So I'll just good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Dr. Krishna Kumar Kishore. I'm the Vice Principal for Ahalia School of Engineering and Technology, and the topic for today's session is uh, hands-on workshop with LaTeX. I'll just share my screen here so that you can see my slides. All right. So is the screen visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Okay. So I welcome all of you to Ahalia campus. Right. This is just a screenshot, just a photo of our college. Right. Let's get started. Right. The outline for today's talk is I'll just be giving a brief introduction on what is actually LaTeX. What are some of the pros and cons of LaTeX? Um, because it's important that we understand why in what situations to use LaTeX and when not to use LaTeX, right? I'll also go over some of the installation and installation process and just to get it set up. Though I will not be spending much time on this one, the installation part, because that might take some long time. Anyway, I'll discuss more about it when we come to that topic. Then the core part of today's session will be this item number 4, which is I'll be going over about 6 examples, and that might take some time. So I'll show you the code for LaTeX, and we'll see what the output looks like, right? Then we'll also talk about how to use LaTeX online. This is something that has been coming up in the past years, and then finally we'll summarize. So that's the agenda for today. So let's just start. By the way, if there are any questions in between, I may not see the chat window, so you can unmute yourself and ask. That will be fine. Or if you want to ask it towards the end, that is also okay. Right? Okay. What is LaTeX, right? So before we look into that question, let's just look at some of the software that we are familiar with, right? Now you've seen these icons before, right? You're familiar with Microsoft Word. The second one is Google Sheets, so Google Docs, right? And the third one is Open Office, right? And there are many other softwares that you can think about, right? Notepad is fine. Notepad plus is there. So many softwares, other softwares are also there, but these are the 3 major ones, especially the first 2, right? Um, there's but there's Word, Google Docs, or or Open Office. What they are is what we call as just right. What is this is called as this what you see is what you get type processes, right? And this WYSIWYG, it stands for what you see is what you get, right? So as you're typing on the keyboard, you're seeing, you're getting the output, right? Right. That's so what you see is what you get, right? Something gets displayed on the screen, and that's the final output when you take a print, right? It's these are all the Word, Google Docs, and Open Office is these kind of word processors, right? And you can see both the content and the layout and formatting, and you can edit all of this. And don't get me wrong, this is very useful, right? And we use it all the time, right? So what is different about LaTeX and why we should be learning LaTeX, or why should we get familiar with LaTeX, right? Um, so LaTeX is actually a typesetting program, right? And it's an extension of the tech program that was created by Donald Knuth in 1977. So this is more like sort of, where you write a little bit of code and you're processing that document, right? You're processing your code and you're getting a suitable output, right? Um, so when often when I talk this is the part where people say, I need to compile a code and then I need to create a PDF, and that process seems cumbersome for people, or it sounds discouraging, right? But I hope by the end of today's session, that fear of LaTeX will go away, and you can start making simple documents as well, right? So the basic motivation why we're switching on to, or why we need to know about LaTeX is mainly to improve the typographical quality, and particularly for scientific writing. All of us, or scientists or engineers, or when we are writing um, scientific documents, right? By me, scientific documents, I mean, a good-looking report with technical content, right? It's natural to have equations, figures, tables, and so on, right? So it'd be nice if you can get, especially with equations, you can have a nice-looking document that comes out of it. Which again, people will say that you can do the same thing in Word. That's true, right? Word, especially the newer generation of Word and Google Docs, right? It can handle equations in a much better way than the earlier versions of Word, right? But still, there is a lot more. Um, Word needs to go a lot more, and it's because it's fundamentally different the way Word or Google Docs is arranged, right? So, particularly for scientific writing, we need something better, right? And that's the main reason why all of us start using LaTeX. So, I first used LaTeX in my for I did my final year undergraduate report in LaTeX. So that was my first introduction to LaTeX, and since then, when you do your masters and your PhD, right? When you're submitting papers, or when you're doing things like that, you start getting more familiar with LaTeX, right? It's always a learning process with LaTeX, right? It's never that you know the entire thing, right? So what are some of the pros and cons of LaTeX, right? So to convince you of this, right, what I mean by this typographical quality, right, this may not be important for a lot of people, right? But it's somewhat for purists who are looking at typography in a very detailed way. This is important for those kind of people. But anyway, nevertheless, it produces a very good document. Right, so let's just see. Let's just look at these two, bunch of words, right? Affordable, avast, firewall, feline table, right? These are the first one on top is written with LaTeX, and the second one at the bottom is written, say, in another word processor like Microsoft Word. Can someone just look at these two, right? This portion and this portion. Can someone say some noticeable differences that you can see just by looking at these two? What all differences can you see? By the way, the letters are exactly the same, right? So don't compare the letters, right? It's more on the typographical quality. Can someone notice some differences? Hello? So I'll be greatly appreciating if you can uh, respond as well. So, as a speaker, I can get some sort of a feedback on, who's attending, right? Can someone notice any differences over here? Not even one?
So there is a spacing between F in affordable.
Over here, you mean? This one?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Right. Right. So if you look at this is the first one, right? So if you look at the way the F is written, right? So in word processor, it's like when you type 2F on your keyboard, you'll get 2F. Whereas LaTeX, it's a little bit more smarter to identify that 2Fs are there, and it will merge it in a little bit more, in a little bit more beautiful manner, right? What else? Anything else that you can observe?
In the first line, firewall. So,
Right, right. So if you look at the way it is written, right, firewall and the dot on the I is merged with the F, right? So so this is to this is what I mean by typographical quality, right? So in Word you type F and I, you get F and I, right? There is no further processing on that. Whereas LaTeX understands that you typed F and I together, so it sort of merges these letters in a little bit more beautiful manner, right? Good, right? So these are another examples. Anything else? There are some more ones, not particularly, it's on a slightly different topic, but it is regarding the spacing between these letters, right? Just look at what has been done over here, right? Look at the space between F and E in feline, right? Over here and here, right? So here it's a little bit more, the words, the letters are more closer to each other, right? When you have this capital F and E followed by E, whereas same with capital T and followed by A, right? So LaTeX is able to adjust that in a little bit more smarter way, whereas in Word that does not happen, right? So it just places these two letters. Right. So this is what I mean by typographical quality, right? And you can go into a little bit more, like for example, the way Avast is written, right? If you look at the space between these letters over here, A and V and A and B, it's not the same, right? It's a small difference, right? And for some, it may not be perceptible as well. So this is one example of what I mean by LaTeX doing a word processing, right? Another example, right? So this is all again taken from the internet, right? I have not made this. I've shown the sources at the end, right? This example is just the same paragraph, right? Written in a column format by three different processes. This is written by Microsoft Word in 2008. This is in Adobe InDesign, and this is the PDF LaTeX output, right? So if you look at this, right, I have identified some of the things as well. Is one thing you can notice is the number of breaks that are happening in the words, right? So for example, nothing is NOTH hyphen and then in goes to the next one, right? All that, if you look at it, the number of times this breaking of the words happen is much lesser in PDF LaTeX. Right, that's because of the way the words have been arranged in that in that paragraph, right? In this single column format, right? So that is one difference. The other one is this dots that I have shown. So for example, if you look at this, right, in Word, right, you see this, huge spacing between throws himself upon his, right? Look at the spacing between throws and himself, right? Whereas that's not true in, let's say, in throws himself upon his sword, right? So the words are arranged in a bit more smarter way. So another example is over here, the rear of every funeral, right? But the words are arranged in a little bit more in a better way, right? So so this is what I mean by the typographical quality, right? So in this case, what we saw is the splitting of the words, which is typically not good. Right? We try to always, when you're producing a good-looking document, that is important, right? So LaTeX does some of this for us automatically, right? We don't have to worry about it, right? So this is some of the, just some visual ways in which LaTeX is different than, the other softwares. I hope you get a better appreciation for this now, right? Does that make sense to people? What I've shown? Questions, comments?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. Okay, so let's look at some pros and cons of LaTeX, right? So one of the advantages of LaTeX is when you begin to use LaTeX, right, you start to focus more on the content than on the layout, right? Most of us, when we start opening a Word file, we immediately get bothered about, what is the margin size, what is the paper size, and all that, right? Whereas that it's not so much true, because in LaTeX you're just typing your content, right? And then the layout part comes later on, right? So the focus is more on the content than on the layout, and you get a professional looking output. And like I just showed before, there is no weird accidental layouting and formatting problems, right? Other advantages may include, writing mathematical equations is much easier, right? I don't know how it is in Word right now, but in the earlier ones, if you want to write a fraction, right, you'll choose the option fraction, then you'll write the numerator separately, you'll write the denominator separately. And if you want to choose Greek letters, you need to go pick manually from those insert symbols. Then so you need to do all that business. So so much effort is not there in LaTeX. So mathematical equations is definitely, in my view, one of the main advantages of LaTeX. Another main advantage is managing citations and references, right? For example, if you're if you're making a bibliography for your thesis or for your book or for a paper, or if you're numbering equations or figures or tables, right? All that becomes much easier. We'll see an example for this as well, right? And one major advantage is it's free and open source, and it works on most hardware platforms, right? Regardless of it's you're using a MacBook or Linux or Windows, it works on hardware platforms, and it's typically free, and so it's always free, right? Um, um, some of the disadvantages, or it's not really a disadvantage, it's some of the some negative aspects is the initial learning curve is sometimes steep, right? And that is a part where people get discouraged. Um, so it's there is no free lunch, right? So if you want to create something good, you need to take some effort, so it's part of that, right? So the learning curve is initially steep, and that's the part that people get get disappointed in, or are not willing to go further, right? And typically the problem starts running when you have to install a separate software and things like that. That also sort of discourages people as well. And sometimes it's an overkill, right? Sometimes you don't need to use LaTeX, right? I'm not saying you need to use LaTeX for everything, right? Sometimes we all use Microsoft Word just for copy pasting stuff, right? As just as a temporary place to paste stuff, right? And for that you don't need to use LaTeX, right? Because you're not creating any output, right? If you want to simply copy paste some random text from some website, you can use Word, right? No problem, right? So this is some of the pros and cons of LaTeX. Um, now, before we start doing things, right? First, there are two steps to using LaTeX, right? First is the installation part, right? So first you need to install the LaTeX program, right? The tech program. And for that, what you need to do is you can go to this website. MikTech is a very, there are other sites as well, but MikTech is a very common one, right? And you can just download the Windows installer, right? You download MikTech and then you run the installer, and then we can install. You need not do the step number 4. So when you download this, you'll find that there are two options: whether you want to download the complete Mic edition version or the basic one, right? Always download the basic one because it will require some amount of net connectivity, and the file size is also large. So it's better to download the like the complete one. I think will come into 256 or 300 MB, whereas the basic one is 36 MB, right? So you can download that and run that, and then the missing parts you can add on the fly, right? As you need things, you can run it. Um, so, and then step number 4 is installing the missing packages, right? So I'll talk about packages later on, right? And this is not an essential step, right? If you just do a basic installation, that would be fine, right? You choose the location where you want to install it in your computer, and you're done. That's it. So that's about installing LaTeX, and I'm not going to show you a demo over here today because that might just take time. And so for today's workshop, I have already downloaded it onto my laptop, and I'm running it off that, right? The second part, so this is the core part. The tech program is the processor part, right? Now, what you also need is you also need an editor, right? A place to start typing in, your paragraphs and your sentences, right? That is the editor, and there are other editors as well. There are TechWorks, which comes default with MikTech. There is other one. Sorry, I think I repeated this. TechWorks. So TechWorks, WinShell, WinEdit, Notepad++, Emacs. These are all various editors you can use. There is Atom is there, right? And these are all most of this are free. I think most of this are free. Emacs is free, TechWorks is there, WinShell is free, WinEdit is free. WinEdit is free, and I think If you want to go into higher options, it becomes a paid version, but the basic one is free. That's sufficient for most of us, right? And so we need an editor, right? So these are the two things that you would need, right? Before you start using LaTeX, right? And for today's session, I have already installed the MikTeX part, and and I already installed an editor as well. So for today's session, I'll be using TechWorks, right? So that would be the editor that I'm using, right? And you can pick an editor of your choice, right? And one advantage I found with TechWorks is, everything, once you download it, it automatically identifies the processor part in where MikTeX is installed on your computer, and you can directly get a PDF output. PDF output you can get on everything as well, right? So it's not a big concern, but I recently started using TechWorks. Previously, I was using Windchill, right? But any editor works fine, right? This is the main part about installing LaTeX. Now, so how do you use LaTeX, right? Right? How do you use LaTeX, right? So the basic process is a three-step process, right? First, you write the document, right? You write the document or you edit the document, whatever you want, right? This is being done in the word processor, right? Once you install an edit, once you install the editor, this writing happens in that editor, right? If it's TechWorks or whatever it is, then you compile the document, and finally you view it, right? This compilation usually typically happens in automatically, right? If you press, depending on the editor that you're using, if you press the view key, it automatically compiles it, right? And if there is any mistake you have made when you're writing this document, it will catch it during the compile phase. Maybe some LaTeX command may not be correct, or maybe you forgot a bracket somewhere, or maybe you forgot slash somewhere, something like that. Then it will catch it in this compiling time, and it will tell you where the mistake is. So you edit it, and then you compile again, and then you view it, and then you find that, oh, there's a mistake, something over here, maybe I need to change something. I can come back and revise the document, and then you recompile it. So it's like, this is a part, where this three-step process is typically not there when you're doing Word and things like that, right? So this is the part where people sort of get discouraged as well. For people who are familiar with computer programming, this may not be a big issue, because all of us, when you're writing a C++ program or something like that, right, you always have a compile stage and then you have an executable stage, right? So it's not a problem for them, but maybe people in other fields, maybe in the basic sciences, or maybe people who are not so familiar with computer programming, this might sound challenging, but it's really not. I'll show you today why it is not challenging as well. So in Word and things like that, immediately you type, you write, you see the view part. There is no need for a compiling, right? So that's about using LaTeX. Now, before we go on to the examples part, so we have finished. Just going back to the outline, we have seen what is LaTeX. We have seen the pros and cons of LaTeX. We have seen about the installation part, and we're going to start using LaTeX, right? Before we move on, I would like to take a quick poll from people, just so that I know where people stand, right? So I'll be sharing a Google form, a link in the chat box. If you can fill it out, it's not going to take maybe two minutes. It's not long, right? If you can fill that out, that would be great. I have posted. So I posted the Google Forms in the chat box. If you can access that form and submit it, that would be great. So we'll take it's 2:25 now. Maybe in a couple of minutes, 2 or 3 minutes, I'll restart. So please fill that form. If you're not able to access that form, please let me know. And if all of you able to access that form?
Sir, excuse me, sir. Pratibha Varkes, please you mute your video. Yes, palm is open, sir.
Showing into
Form is opening, sir. Form is
form
opening.
is opening. Okay, all right, thank you.
Yes, yes, we feel. But we are completely new to this, sir. We don't know any idea.
That's okay. I will. I'll help you out through that. I'll take you through the basic steps.
Oh, can we convert this Word document to LaTeX, sir? Is there anything like we type in Word and it becomes, or the vice versa, something?
No, you cannot. You can copy paste. You cannot convert it directly.
Okay, okay.
Right. You can convert that. Maybe if in Word you can save it as a PDF. Right. But that's about it.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
whatever contents you're typing in Word, you'll have to paste it into LaTeX.
But for research papers, do they mandate that we should use LaTeX only, no other word processor or anything like that, sir?
No, actually that depends on the journal. Some journals do insist, like for example in IEEE, most people I know use LaTeX. I'm not sure if IEEE insists on it, right? But sorry, some people are getting an internal error. Not quite sure why you're getting an error.
No, many times it is network problem, sir. That is issue everywhere.
Right. Oh, okay.
Sometimes it opens. Yeah, sometimes it opens in seconds, but sometimes it takes time.
Oh, right. Okay. Okay. Right. Sorry. So please ignore the second link that I sent. That I don't think that's working. So please go with the original link that I pasted. But 17 people have responded. Right. Right. So I'll wait a couple more minutes and then so meanwhile let me start sharing my screen again.
So I have a doubt.
Sure.
So once we install mic text on our
Right.
laptop, editor we should download.
Right. Editor you should download separately. Sorry, I didn't put the link for that. I'll just share my screen and you can see it. Right.
Okay, so thank you.
Right. So this is the MikTech page, right? If you just, I hope you're all able to see my screen, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you just type in MikTech in Google, and then the first link that it goes is this website over here, right? miktech.org. Right. If you go to downloads, right, you can go to Windows, and right, there is this basic one. Uh, um, if you go to this all downloads over here, there is this basic installer. I had a 64-bit machine, right? There is this net installer over here. That's the size is a little bit smaller, right? So when you can download it, right? And then you can download that, so in my downloads folder, right, it will come up something like this, right? So this folder like this one over here, right? And then maybe I'll just run it, right? So maybe people can see it. So this is I'll just run it now. So I'm not going to reinstall, but I'll cancel it at some point. So you just go next. The first one you do is you start for downloading MikTech. First you download, and then after you download, you again run the same file and then you install it. Right? When you go download, right, it will ask you for the location where you want to so it go ask you whether you want a basic one or a complete one. Just go into basic one. Right, and then the next step, if you go, it will ask for so many mirrors, right, from where it is going to download. So I had a tough time doing this, but I found that the UK mirror works well. It's consistent. So this one from FTP, from any of these sites, it works. I tried a couple one from the UK version, it downloads fast. So I'm not going to go next now because it's probably start downloading again, right? So I want to avoid that. But anyway, after you run this process, it just takes some time. Maybe it might take about half an hour to download, depending on a net connection, right? It will download all of it, and then it will go into you can download and you can tell a location as well. So I gave it in my C folder, C program files, right? Under C program files, I gave it under MikTeX, and everything gets installed over here. So you get all this, code that goes like this, right? So none of this is, understandable for us, but it gets downloaded, and it's important that it is over here. So after you download it, right, you run the same thing again, and now instead of downloading, you go install it. Right, again you go next, again you go the basic version, and then you go next, and then it'll again it'll ask you which user you wanted. So for example, some people have multiple users on their laptop. So in my case, there is only myself. So I installed only for myself, and I recommend you do it only for one person, one account. Right, and then you go again next. Again, it will ask you where you saved your MikTeX, right? So in this particular case, I'll go program file /MikTeX. Then you go next, and that installation process will happen. So this is about MikTeX download, right? And regarding the question that was asked regarding the editor, you can just search online for any of these editors. So the editor that I have is TechWorks, right? So right, so any one of those will work, right? So so you can go here, you can just search for that, and you can just download TechWorks, right? So this TechWorks, and you can get the download one. You can install it, right? So that's so same thing with the WinEdit or any WinShell or anything like that. If you plan to use WinShell, right? You can go to WinShell, right? Right, and then right, and then you can download that as well, right? So I'm not going to spend time over here, but right. So you can download a right. So this is a screenshot for that, right? So you can download this as well, right? So and then you can run that, and then for today's workshop, I have set up. I have downloaded TechWorks. So so this is what the editor looks like, right? So this is the editor, what it looks like. So we'll be using this for today's one. So madam, I hope that answers your question.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thanks. So about 30 people have responded. So most of you are beginners. Some people have attended sessions. Okay, anyway, just so that you know, I can gear my talk accordingly. All right, so thank you for filling this form. People who are still doing it can do it, but I think we'll move on. All right. Okay, so the first example is the most basic document that we are going to do, right? And we're going to do a couple of things, right? I'll just tell you what we're going to do, and then we'll actually start doing it. So you'll see one line of code called document class with some options and a class option over here, right? So we'll talk about all of this, right? Don't get scared, right? I'll tell you what it is. And there is an important variable that we're going to see is begin document and end document. And then we'll finally save it as a .tex file, .tex file. So what we'll be doing is, so I just opened that file, right? And just in the interest of time, I have already typed it. So, I don't spend time in the session, typing everything, right? So the first sentence that I told you, immediately the moment you open a text file, right, you can open an empty file, right? The first thing that you do, the first statement in any text file will always be the statement that you see over here. This document class, the slash backslash document class, square brackets, article. This is the same thing as what I wrote over here, right? Document class. The square brackets are the options, right? And the class is, I'll tell you what class is, right? So in this particular case, so let's look at some of the options. The options are, so let's talk about options first, right? In the options, you can customize the document, right? You can tell the font size, you can tell the type of paper, maybe using A4 letter size, or maybe you want a 1-column format or a 2-column format, right? And the classes, depending on the journal you're submitting. Sometimes, for example, IEEE gives you a IEEE trans class file, .cls file. So you can just download it from the IEEE website, or from the typically journals give that as well, right, on the journal link. If so, you can just simply type in IEEE tran over here, and then it will automatically use the style settings that is expected from that journal. That is the beauty of it. You don't have to spend time setting the the page margin, 2-column format, all that, font size, everything gets set up automatically, right? Because the journal is giving you that class format, right? For example, some universities also do it for theses, right? For example, if the university wants to standardize all the master's thesis and the PhD thesis to look a certain way, like particularly, the first page and things like that, the way chapters are written, the style on it, typically the university will release a class file, and you can simply download that class file and save it in the same location as where you're writing your tech document, right? And you can just simply type it in. Now, in our case, I made it very simple. Right now, I have not put any options, right? Anything in square brackets is also optional. Right? When I say options, this is an optional field as well. So we can put it, we cannot put it. It will not say anything, right? Or if you leave it empty as well, like how I have done here, nothing will happen, right? It is just left empty in this case, right? But now I'm telling it, I want to write an article, and this is for most of us, this is the doc file that you can, the format that it does. There are some other built-in options like book, right? If you're writing a book, you can put in book, or book chapter is also there, right? You can customize it accordingly, and the more typically what we do is, if you want to do something, you Google it and find out if it's possible, and you learn. That's how you learn later, right? Now, anyway, so with this first sentence is always unnecessary. The second most thing, does that make sense what I said just now for people?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's right.
So if some of you already have maybe a laptop or something, just to type it out, you can try it, right? But just in the interest of time, because I cannot see at what pace everyone is going, so I'll get going at my pace. If you want to, if you want me to slow down, please let me know. Okay, so this is the first sentence that I talked about, right? This document class, right? Right, the document class option. The second most important thing after that you have is this begin document and end document, right? Whenever you make a LaTeX file, everything that you want to go into your LaTeX document must come within these two ones, right? So you have this command like begin document / begin document. So what it's telling LaTeX is it's telling LaTeX that I'm going to begin the document from now on, right? So, and similarly, you also have an end document, right? So you do the / end and document. So it's telling LaTeX that within these two statements, the beginning document and the end document, is my content that I want to do, right? So any LaTeX document that you have, this is a must, right? All right. So So again, we'll be seeing this begin and end is what is called as keywords, right? You'll see a lot of this begin and end statements coming out, right? When we do equations, when you're doing tables, when you're doing figures, you'll see this begin and end coming out. Maybe when you're making a list, a bullet list, or when you're enumerating, that will also you will see. Right, so that will happen. We'll see all that. Okay, so I hope that is clear, right? So and then finally, what you do is ignore everything else for now, right? Ignore all of this, right? Don't worry about it. And then all you do is you go Control S, right? You'll save it, right? When you save it or you go save as, you'll save it as a .tex file, and that's what I have done over here, right? So if you look at my right, just make it large so you can see it, right? So example 1.tex, right? So this is the first example that I'm doing. So I'm saving it as a .tex file, right? And typically when you're done with your installation of your editor, simply when you double click it, all .tex files will be mapped to that editor. So when you simply double click it, automatically this tex file will come out. All right. So this is our first thing that we must know. Okay, so now let's move on. The next thing that we're going to do is we'll start our demo part, right? First thing that I'll do is I'll type a simple sentence, right? So these are a couple of things that we'll be going over, right? We'll be doing a simple sentence, and we'll do one paragraph. Then we'll try changing some of these options, right? Instead of the default option, I'll be changing it to a 12-point format. Based by also the default font style is Times New Roman, right? We can change that as well. I'm not showing that over here, but you can change that as well. We'll also do a demo where you're changing from a single column to a 2-column. And then we'll also do some examples where you're trying to bold, italize, or underline certain parts of your document. Right? So let's do the first one, right? Simple sentence, right? So what do we do, right? So let me, also I'll be talking about this, but this percentage sign is what we call comment. Right? If some of you are familiar with programming, we know this, right? When you put a comment into a code, right, that comment is not processed by the compiler. It's a very similar idea over here as well, right? So anything after the comment, after the percentage sign, the text processor will ignore, right? And in this particular editor, it is coming out as a red color, right? Again, this depends. The color is not very important. That depends on the editor you're using. Different editors will have different color formats, right? And you can also customize it, right? All editors, you can change the font size. For example, if I want to show the line numbers, that is also possible, right? Just like in a code, right? I can show the line numbers as well, right? Anyway, now the first sentence that we're going to do is, so I have document class. I have said it's an article. It's a begin document. Then I have written this is a sentence. And then finally, the program is going to ignore all of this because this is all under comments, right? And finally, I have an end document. And that's it. This is your first LaTeX document. So you have typed it out, but you want to see the final output, right? What is it going to look like? So for that, you need to do a compiling. And in this particular software, in TechWorks, right? In TechWorks, it automatically does it for you, right? So if I do this play button, it will automatically compile and it will show the output in PDF. That's a default option over here, right? So here it says PDF LaTeX. When you see PDF LaTeX, it automatically gives it as a PDF document. So I'll do this, right? There's a shortcut key as well. I can also press Control T on my keyboard, or I'll press this one off so that you see that, right? So I'll press this play button. So you see that, code has compiled, right? You saw some code, and then you get this output, right? Example1.pdf, right? So this is a sentence, right? And you can also see it in, in Adobe. If you have Adobe installed, right? You can also see it in Adobe, right? Right. So this is a sentence. This is the first thing that you do, and that's it, right? So this is what you wanted, right? You have put up the default options about the page margin and everything like that. And you're only focused on the content part, right? So this is an Adobe. I will not be opening this because a built-in Adobe PDF viewer over here. So I'll be showing it to you in this editor. Does this make sense for people?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. All right. So that's it. So that's it. So it's as simple as this, right? So so someone was asking just now. One person was asking whether you can convert a Word file into PDF into LaTeX, right? So what I would advise is
Yes, sir.
whatever you do, whatever you typed in Word, right? Just copy paste it into this portion over here, right? Just copy paste it into over here, and that's it. Right. So if you want, I can do a show a demo of it, right? But I hope that's understood, right? So now, I hope that is clear, right?
But that means already the class and other things are already selected, and we just have to copy paste. Is it going to adjust by itself?
So I'll show you an example. Maybe that will make sense, right? We just change the right. So let's open a new Word file, right? I'm just going to type in some. So example 1 dot, right? So I'm going to type in something. Let's pick up some meaningful paragraphs, right? So let's go online and pick up. Right. So let me just copy paste the sentence, right? Just going to copy paste this. Okay. And let's going to ignore all the what do you say, hyperlinks, right? For now, we'll ignore the hyperlinks because it's a simple document that we're doing, right? So let's do this. So this is something that I have, and maybe I have a lot more of this. I'm just going to copy paste the same thing, right? So right, so I have this Word file which I have, and I want to copy paste. What I'll do is I want to make this into LaTeX. What I'll suggest you do is you just copy paste this document, right, and paste it into your LaTeX file, right? So after this is a sentence, right? Just copy paste it here, right? And that's it, right? And then we'll see what the output looks like, right? So I run this one, and that's it, right? So it automatically, right, I don't have to worry about anything, right? I set the default one as an article, right? I'm not worried about the font size or anything for now, but after I compile it, the output comes, this is a sentence, right? So I had this is a sentence, then I had a few empty lines, and then it's coming to the next line over here, right? So this is another thing. LaTeX, the processor doesn't worry about how much of space I have over here, right? Even if I compile this again, right, the output is not going to change. It's still going to keep the same, right? Because LaTeX has identified this as a next paragraph, right? And so it's indenting over here, and then it's going on to the next line, right? And so on. So I hope this answers your question.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So that's about right. So that so we have already went more than one paragraph. So we have seen a simple sentence. Now let's see what happens when you do one paragraph, right? So the default one I had is over here. I'm going to uncomment this one. So the processor is going to read this is a sentence. Then it sees some empty lines and it sees the next paragraph coming here, right? So in the following lessons you will be introduced. So I'm going to compile this, and then let's see what happens. Right. So this is a sentence, and by default, the new paragraph is always indented. Right. There's a small space over here. There's an option to remove this as well. Some people don't like it. Right. So we can remove this as well. So we'll see that later on. Right. But this is now how you do one paragraph. Right. And that's it. Right. So now if I want more paragraphs, I simply have all this. I just copy pasted the entire paragraph. Right. Right. I'm just uncommenting it over here, and then we'll see some of the other features as well, which I had over here. Or maybe just 1 second, so I'll just comment this out. Then I'll copy paste the exact same thing. Let's keep it simple. And then I recompile it, right? And it's pretty fast, right? So again, I get the next paragraph, right? So this is all, right? And if for most people, if you're making a simple document, this is more than sufficient, right? If it's only letters and paragraphs, this is all you need, right? Now, so that's about a paragraph, right? And let's try changing the font size to 12 point. I think the default one is 10. Even if so, if we have left it empty over here, right? The default one, if I'm correct, is 10. And I'm going to increase the font size, right? I find that the font size is very small over here. I want to increase the font size. So what I do is I change this to 12 point. In the options, right? Remember over here the options part, right? There's options over here. I can change it to 12 point, right? So I change it to 12 point, and again I compile, right? So you see that this letters got bigger, right? So the font size has increased. Make sense? All right. So let's look at the next one. The next one is what I want to do is I want to change from a single column to a two column, right? So this is a single column document, right? Everything goes into one column, right? But typically when you read journals and things like that, there's a two column format, right? And again, like I said, if you're using the default class file, it will automatically do it for you. You don't have to worry about these options, right? So if I want to do it two column, all I'm going to do is in addition to 12 point, I'm going to write two column. Right? And then I'm going to compile it. Right? So you see that it has come to a certain column. Right? So what it's going to do is, I'll just zoom out of this. Right? So this is a two column. Right? So what it's going to do is, if I had a longer paragraph or if I had a longer content, what it's going to do is it's going to come here. It's going to go all the way to over here. Then it's going to come back up. Right? That's what two column does. Right? And that's what you would want to do. Right? So I'm going to keep it back to the single column because it's easier to see, right? So and then I recompile it and that's it, right? So I get back the single column format. Now again, like you see over here, right? The default, if you do nothing, right? The page number comes automatically, right? So here it is written page number 1, and it's written at the center of the page at the bottom. You can control this as well. I'll show you an example later on how you can control some of these features. So the default is there's so much margin on top, there's so much margin at the bottom, and so on, right? And typically this might seem like a lot more than this is necessary, so you can control it accordingly. Okay, now let's so that's about changing from a one column to a two column. Now let's do some standard things that all of us do often. One is like bolding, italicizing, and underlining, right? So how do you do that, right? So for that, there is this comment, and so it's the same paragraph, right? So this paragraph, right? There is a command called text bf. So backslash text and bf, right? Bf stands for bold form, right? And then so whatever I want to bold, I have put in this bracket, right? This curly bracket over here, right? And so the editors are nice in the sense that if I go over it, it highlights. If I if I open a bracket and then I forgot it somewhere, right? The compiler will tell me I made a mistake. So most editors have this nice feature, right? If it matches it highlights the matching brackets over here. So let's compile the statement and see. So text BF, right? So what I'm expecting or what I want is I want to bold these three words in the following, right? So let's see if that's what happens. Right. So again, I compile it and then just zoom in, right? That's what I get, right? So in the following gets zoomed in. Sorry, gets bolded, right? In the following. Now, the next one maybe is how to italize it, right? How do we italize it? So again, let's go on to the next paragraph, right? Again, right, it's the same content. I'm just copy pasting. And again, now I want to italize these three words in the following. So the command is backslash text it, right? This command. So backslash text and italics. It stands for italics, right? So again, now if I compile it, again, I press this play button. It'll compile. So you see this difference over here, right? In the following, right? Right. So it's italicized over here. The other thing is now what I would like to do is maybe I want to underline a certain portion of my text. And you can do this anywhere, mind you. It need not always be in the beginning, right? I just showed it in the beginning. So now, underline in the following. Let's say if I want to underline the basic features as well, or I want to bold this one. So I just go text BF, basic features of LaTeX. Right, so I want to bold this portion as well, right? So underline command is / underline, right? Some of the editors, there are drop-down options where you can pick these commands by default, right? Windshell is good for that. Windshell has it. In this one, I have not found it yet. I recently installed this new editor, right? So anyway, let's compile this and see what you get, right? So in the following gets underlined, right? And then basic features got highlighted. Right. So it's really quite simple, right? You just, the difficult part again is, some people might ask now is, how do we know all these commands, right? I hope that is a natural question, right? How do we know what are these commands? So there is often the answer is Google, right? If you want to do something, just Google it up and you'll find it. But better than that, I found that there is a very good book you can search online. I'll show you that book right now, right? It's freely available, right? Just search in Google for this book called The Not So Short Introduction to LaTeX. This book over here. Right, this is a very good book. It just lists, it lists out pretty much everything that we want to do. It gives you all the commands, right? So, for example, you scroll down. So this document itself is made in LaTeX, right? So for example, over here, right? Like how do we do special characters, right? It gives you the code and it also shows you the output, right? So this is a very good book. When I was starting off learning LaTeX, I was using this, right? So for example, I want to italize this. This is in another way. I want to can slant the letters or text slant, right? About comments, right? So this is a very good document, right? It talks about this document class, talks about some of the things that I told you about the begin document, end document, right? It's a very good book. I highly recommend it. It's freely downloadable. If you're serious about LaTeX, you can download it. It gives you, pretty much everything that you want. Most people will do on a regular basis, right? I'm just showing you, like, for example, the good thing about this is, it shows the command and it shows the output as well. So you know what it's going to look like. So for example, I want to write minus 30 degrees Celsius. So it gives a command for this. So we'll do some examples like this. This is going into the math mode. So we'll see that. Okay. So I think I'm going extremely slow, but I hope it's worth it. So I hope you're following, right? Yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. I had 6 examples. I'm already into 1 hour. So let's see and see what we can do. Anyway, so this is about the first one. The second example that I want to talk about is, again, paragraphs, sections, and subsections. We have seen already the first part, 2 or more paragraphs, right? Then, something I just show you this command as well. There's something called begin paragraph and end paragraph as well. Right, so I'll show you what happens when, what's the difference between this and a regular paragraph. We'll talk about no indent, right? And then we'll talk about the backslash. You've already seen it now. And important over here, what I want to show you is this commands called sections, subsections, subsection. You can do all this, right? And this is typically useful when you write, papers and theses and book chapters and things like that, right? So let's go to the second example. So I'm going to close this text file. Right. Let's open the next text file, which is example 2. Right. So let's open that. Okay. So so let's again. It's the same. Right. So again, it starts off with document class. 12 point and article. It has a begin document at the top, and it has an end document at the bottom, right? And everything in between, for now, it's in red because it's commented out, but we'll be slowly uncommenting things, right? And right now, as is, let's see what the output looks like, right? Right now, what you have is a paragraph, right? 2 or more paragraphs, right? Right. So let's just see what the default output looks like, right? So I'm going to compile this, and this is what I'll get, right? So it's a standard paragraph that I got, right? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, I already talked about this, empty line starts a new paragraph. I'm going to use this command, begin paragraph and end paragraph, right? So let's see what the difference is, right? So I'm going to uncomment this part, right? Begin paragraph. Always remember, for every begin statement, there must be an end statement, right? And I'm going to uncomment this portion as well, right? So once you uncomment, the color changes and the processor knows that it's something that needs to be processed, right? So what I have right now is, again, a begin document on top, an end document at the bottom over here, and the stuff in between, just really 2 paragraphs. So, but the difference is this paragraph I have written like this, right? And typically we don't use this, but I thought I'll just show it just so that you're aware of such a thing as there, right? So let's see what the output looks like, right? So this is what happens. So this is the first paragraph that I had, right? Then there is an end line, right? And then with this paragraph, what happens is the first letter gets into this kind of a style, right? The first letter is emphasized, and you'll see this in some books as well, right? So this is what happens when you use this paragraph. And you know, I have not used this as much. I typically don't use it, right? Now let's go on to the next one. Let's have one more paragraph in. Right, just so that you understand the difference, right? So I'm putting this next paragraph, and let's compile it again, right? So now I have 3 paragraphs, right? So this paragraph, and the third paragraph, which starts off in a regular way. Okay. All right. So that's about 2 or more paragraphs, the begin paragraph and the end paragraph statement. All right. Let's look at this no indent one, right? That's over here. Let's uncomment that line. And then I'm going to start a paragraph, right? So my regular paragraph is this. LaTeX is not a standalone document. That's my regular paragraph. But let's compile that first, and then I'll show you the difference, right? Right. So we are over here. I have first paragraph, second paragraph, the third paragraph, and the fourth paragraph over here, right? So over here. So this is our fourth paragraph over here, and you see this space over here, right? Some people do not like it. One way to remove it is through this. So before the paragraph starts, you use this comment called no indent, right? And then I compile it. That indent goes away, right? So that LaTeX, so it becomes it's a new paragraph, but without that indent, right? So that's about the no indent command. And this is something that I already told you. All LaTeX commands will begin with a backslash, right? Like for example, the begin, end, right? The no indent, document class, begin, end, all that starts with the backslash, right? So that's something for you to keep in mind. All right, so now let's go to the main part, right? Now, typically, when you're organizing a document, you will have many sections. So you'll have section 1, section 2, section 3. And within a section, you'll also have maybe 1.1, 1.2. And within 1.1, you might have 1.1.1 and so on, right? So let's see how do we do that, right? So in LaTeX, what you do is, you have this comment called \section, and in curly brackets, you write the title of the section, section 1. Right, and then typically you'll want something inside it as well. So you have a statement inside it as well. So inside that section, the first line is going to look like this is a text for section 1. Okay, so let's compile this and see. So this is again the keyword in LaTeX \section. Right. Again, the nice thing is I don't have to worry about what is a font style, what is a font size, and things like that. It's automatically taken care of. Right. So let's see what the output looks like. Right, so it'll be going into the next page, right? And I get this. It puts a number automatically and section 1. right? And this is a text for section 1, right? And this is the second line that I have. This is a text for section 1. And similarly, I can add more sections, right? So this is section 2, right? If I compile this, what happens? Right? Automatically, all that alignment is done. So we don't have to worry about it, right? So section 2, the numbering is done, section 2, and this is a text for section 2. So that's about a section. And sometimes you also need subsections, right? So for example, 2.1, right? So the keyword is subsection, quite obvious, right? Subsection, right? And that happens, right? Backslash subsection and then the title of the section, section 2.1, right? And then you can compile it, and then this happens, right? So 2.1 automatically goes like that, right? And this is a text for section subsection 2.1. Note that the font, if you zoom in, right? Right? If you zoom in, right? The font size of section 2.1 is automatically smaller than section, right? So the section, the subsection is font size is smaller than section. So we don't have to worry about all this, right? It's automatically taken care of. Now you can also have subsection. So for example, 2.1.1, right? So this is what you would do. You would have again subsection 2.1.1, and again you can uncomment that, and then let's compile it. So this is what happens, right? 2.1.1, and this is a title for that, and this is customizable, right? You can write it whatever you want, right? And so on, right? So for example, if I might have, right? So let's see what I have, right? So let's just uncomment all the rest, right? So in this case, I'm going up to section 3 over here, right? And that's it. And then I go end document. So let's compile and see what it looks like. So, okay. Right, so I have section 1, section 2, 2.1, 2.1.1, 2.1.2, 2.2, 2.3. Right, so this is about sections and subsections, right? And subsection as well, right? So that's about this point over here. I talked about using comments, and I also talked about, you don't have to worry about numbering the sections, right? It's automatically taken care of, right? So you don't have to worry about it, right? The numbering is taken care of, the alignment is taken care of, the font size is taken care of. You don't have to worry about all that. So does this make sense for people?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. So that's about the second example. Let's move on to the next example. So the way I have structured it is that at the end of this, we'll be having a couple of page document, right? Okay. So the next section that we're going to do is, and probably the most thing that most people are interested in, is the math part. And we'll be seeing why the math part is much better. What is the difference between the math mode and a regular text mode? So far, what we have been doing is a text mode. So we'll see how do we go into the math mode. We'll be using this command, begin equation and end equation. We'll be using that. We'll also be talking about packages. This package is a very common package, and it has most specialized symbols. Not all symbols are built into the default text editor, and we'll see how to use this package. So the extra ones are given in packages, right? We'll talk about how to write an inline equation using the $sign. We'll talk about Greek letters, superscripts, subscripts, fractions, controlling the space between letters, which is sometimes important in math, just so that it looks good and legible. So we'll do some examples on that. So that's example 3. Right, so let's close this file. Let's open example 3. All right. Again, the beginning part of the document is exactly the same. So I'm just building up from example 2. Right. Again, you have document class. I'll talk about this right now. Right. The package one. Right. Then we have the standard begin document. At the end, I have the end document, and up to section 3 you have seen. Right? This is stuff that we saw right now in in example 2. So let's just go over section 3 now, right? Right. So just one second. Let me just comment this out. So before I go into showing you what this is. Right. So let's just so whatever right now what we have the code that we have is whatever we have seen so far, right? Let's just see what the output is looking like. So we have a reference. So I compile it, the output comes up, right? This is the first page, section in section 3, right? Now I'm doing example 3. So I changed the title header to example 3, the section title to example 3. So that's why it's coming up as example 3, right? So this is the first paragraph that we had over here, the next paragraph, right? So we have 2 paragraphs here, right? Note that in the section immediately, the first paragraph is not indented. This is a default setup that we have, right? If you want, you can make it to indent, but typically it's not a very serious matter. Okay, so right now what we have is called as a text mode. We have not used anything in the math mode right now. So let's go on to the math mode. So the math mode versus text mode, right? So let's just go back to the code. And I'm going to write my first equation, right? So I'm going to write one equation in the regular text mode, this equation of a straight line, y is equal to mx plus c. And I'm also going to write an equation in the math mode. Now, if I'm going to write an equation in the math mode, I'm going to use begin equation and end equation, right? So backslash begin equation, backslash end equation. And within my equation, I'm going to write this exact same equation of straight line, y equal to mx plus c, right? So let's, what I have done is I have written this equation for straight line, both in the text mode and in the math mode. So let's just compile it and see what it looks like. So this is what happens, right? So I'll just be zooming in so that you see it a little bit more clear, right? So this much you have seen before. Now in the regular text mode, LaTeX doesn't understand that, it is an equation now, right? So it thinks of it as just like another equation, and it's simply putting it as another paragraph, y is equal to mx plus c. But what we really wanted was a math mode, right? So that's what the difference is, right? So when we went into begin equation and end equation, you simply typed it just like what you would have done normally, right? And then, but the output is like an equation. You see the difference, right? The first difference is the equation gets numbered. The second equation is all the all the variables, they are slightly italicized, right? As opposed to a regular text form, right? This is not italicized, whereas this is italicized, right? So this is the main difference, right? When you go into math mode, all the letters get slightly, becomes the italicized version, and the begin equation, by default it goes to the middle of the page, right? So so that's a basic difference, right? So begin equation and end equation. Now, almost always, like I said, as you getting in doing more complicated things in mathematics, right? Maybe adding an integral and things like that. You will need more complicated commands. So I highly recommend you just write this line. You will just use this package in the beginning as well, in the beginning itself. So we'll just see how this looks like. So this line, use package AMS math. Now, where do you put this line? You put it at the beginning of your document, right? You tell it after your document class, you tell it what package you want to use. So when it's compiling itself, it will know. So what the compiler will read is when it goes to this line, it will read, okay, I want to use the package, AMS math package. And if you're not installed it, it will automatically download it and install it and run it for you, and you can use it. But if you don't use this package, some of the advanced mathematical things will point out as an error, right? So it'll be useful to use it. So I highly recommend just put it in, even if you're not using it or using it. The moment you're using math mode, just put it in, right? It'll make your life easy. Right. Okay. So now what we're going to do is, so I told about AMS math. Now let's talk about an inline equation. What I mean by an inline equation is, if it's in the middle of a paragraph, you want to put an equation, y equal to mx plus c, right? Let's say my name is Krishna, and then along with it, I want to write an equation, x squared plus y squared equal to r squared. So then what you do is you use a dollar sign, right? And I'll show you the difference between them, right? So let's just do an example. Okay. So again, so it is after once it once LaTeX reads the end equation, it comes out of the math mode. Then it becomes a normal text mode. Okay. So then it says this is the equation of a circle, and then what I have done is I have put this dollar sign over here. See, dollar sign, the starting dollar sign and the ending dollar sign. So everything within this dollar sign is in the math mode now, right? And I'm writing x squared plus y squared equal to r squared, right? So for writing squared, this is what you do. It's on your keyboard. It's on top of number 6 on your keyboard, right? So you go shift and 6, you'll get that sign, right? And it's the same way, right? So and then I compile it. Let's see what the output looks like. Right. So this is an inline equation, right? So this is the equation of a circle, right? X squared plus y squared equal to r squared. Right. So it's different than the begin equation because the begin equation, it sets up a default numbering for that equation and it also comes to the center of the page. Whereas an inline equation, it comes just where you want to write it, right? It's in line with your paragraph, right? And there is no equation number for it, right? So this is about inline equations. Right? And again, you see how simple it is to write an equation, right? It's just like you're typing on your keyboard, right? Whereas on Word, you'd have to go search for that symbol and, align that, squared appropriately, right? You need to raise it as a superscript and things like that. So the newer versions are a little bit more easier, but it gets a little tedious. You spend a lot of time on that, right? So let's do another example, right? Greek letters and superscripts and subscripts. So let's go back to the code. Now I'm going to use Greek letters, right? And I'm going to do a few inequalities as well, right? So I'm going to use a math environment. Again, I'm going to use an inline mode, and I'm going to do Greek letters. So again, these are built-in commands. So you go \alpha, right? \beta, \gamma, right? So this is capital gamma because G is capital. Right? If it was small g, it would have been the small gamma, and this is capital delta, right? That is one line that I want to do, and the other one is writing equations with inequalities. Again, I go into the math mode by having this dollar sign, right? And then this stands for greater than or equal to, right? GEQ. For some editors, again, if you're using Winshell, it is there on the top bar. You will find that built-in options are there. So you just need to click an icon, and that command will come up automatically. So that might be easier initially, right? I think it is there over here as well, but I didn't get time to set it up. Maybe it is here, but I didn't get time. Anyway, let's not spend time on it, right? So let's see what it looks like, right? The output. Right. So again, the equation of a circle using math environment when writing Greek letters, I have alpha, beta, gamma, delta, right? And then I also have my inequality, z is greater than or equal to. Right. So you also know that all these variables are automatically italicized. You don't have to worry about anything, right? And again, like for example, if I want to add small gamma here, what I'll do is gamma, again, small gamma, \gamma, small gamma. So the letter G is small, right? So I get small gamma, right? Okay, so let's move on with another example in math mode, right? So let's start using subscripts and superscripts, right? So typically this is often needed. I want to write x2, x sub 2, x sub 1, and things like that, right? So let's do another example, right? So example with a subscript, right? So x2 plus y 1 comma 1 is less than or equal to 2. Again, this is an inline equation. I can write it as a begin equation and end equation as well if I wanted to, right? So let's just compile this and see. Right? So example with a subscript. x2 plus y11 is less than or equal to 2. Right? So again, you don't have to worry about, aligning that 2 properly and things like that. The subscript 2 or 1 comma 1 and things like that. It's automatically done and you can move on with your life, right? Okay, let's do some more complicated examples, right? Let's do fractions and, just seeing spaces, and we'll do some examples where you're using summation and integrals and things like that, right? So let's do another equation, right? Now I'm going to use the begin equation. This is a slightly more complicated equation. I'm having a limit, right? So I'm having a limit as n tends to infinity. So this is a keyword for infinity, backslash infty, right? Again, I'm using it within the begin command and begin equation and end equation, right? For limit, this is a backslash lim, right? Underscore, right? So I should have emphasized this. Underscore is for subscripts, right? This, this top triangle is for superscript, right? So limit as n goes from n tends to infinity, summation. At the bottom of the summation, I want k equal to 1. On top of the summation, I want n. And I want a fraction, right? So I have backslash frac, right? And 2 brackets, right? The first portion is a numerator, and the second portion is a denominator, right? So, and then again, this one, right? So let's just compile and see what happens, right? So this is what I get, right? So limit as n tends to infinity, summation k goes from 1 to n, 1 over k squared is pi squared over 6. And again, because it has an equation mode, the numbering comes automatically. Okay, so you see how easy it is to write this equation, right? I wrote this equation just as though I'm writing a paragraph. I just need to know the keywords, right? And for that, the book I told you, like this book will help you, right? This book, if you go into its sections, right, typesetting mathematical formula, right? It will tell you, it'll list out all the math part that you want, right? It's a very helpful book, right? It gives you examples like this, right? You can make documents like this and things like that, right? Complicated ones like this as well, right? Okay, so let's move on. Let's do some more examples, right, in the math mode. Right, this is again, what I'm doing is I want to, this document, if you look at it, I want this n tends to infinity is written very close to each other, right? I want to add a little bit more space just to beautify it, right? I'll just make it a little more beautiful. So what I have this comment is n backslash semicolon, right? Semicolon. I can add all this, right? I can control it. There are 3 types of spaces you can add: semicolon, colon, and comma, right? And each one controls the spacing. So let's just see the output so you appreciate the output, right? So if you look at these two, right? If you look carefully, you see the spacing over here, right? N tends to infinity. It is written in a little bit more legible manner, right? So things like that you can do with LaTeX, right? Okay, trigonometric equations, right? Just in the interest of time, I'm going to go a little bit more faster, right? So trigonometric equations, right? Sine square theta plus cos square theta is 1. So the keyword is sine theta backslash cos backslash theta. So let's just compile it. Right? Sine square theta plus cos square theta is equal to, right? Other equations. Let's write out a differential equation, right? So I'm just going to uncomment all of this just in the interest of time, right? So I have a differential equation for y equal to mx plus c. I can differentiate it, and I can get the second order differential as well, right? Go on to the next page, right? So if I differentiate y equal to mx plus c, I get dy by dx is equal to m. I can do the second order differential as well, d squared y by dx squared as well, right? So this is nothing but doing fractions, right? What I have done is I have written, this is a fraction, right? dy is a fraction, dy by dx as a fraction, right? So I can write dy by dx as a fraction. And then I can also do integrals, right? I'm just going to show it the entire thing just in the interest of time. I have a single integral, and the command is again backslash int. If I want to have a triple integral, here again the package becomes useful, right? int, right? So for triple integral you have triple I, right? You can do that, right? And you can get the keyword, right? So 0 to 2 pi sine theta d theta is 0. The triple integral with subscript v, and I get this document. Okay. I can also write a matrix out, right? with a square bracket. There is a keyword for this, and that is B matrix. So you type out, you start your equation, you start your equation, then you do your B matrix. The command is B matrix. So if you have B matrix, so within equation you have B matrix. So you end your B matrix and then you end your equation, right? And so the ampersand just acts as a delimiter. It is telling there are 3 columns, right? Just separating between columns. And this 2 backslash at the end is saying go to the next line, right? Next row, right? So I'll just show you the output, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I get the square brackets around it, right? So automatically, so 1, 2, 3, then I go to the next row, backslash, backslash, 4, 5, 6, it comes to the next row, right? So it comes 4, 5, 6. Okay, so I think, so that's the end of the math mode. So I've shown you various examples. So I hope, this gives you an appreciation for, how easy it is to type mathematics in LaTeX. And the output is also quite good, right? You don't have to spend time, spend time on the layout, everything gets done for you automatically. Paramurgan sir, I'm running short on time. How much time do I have?
No problem, sir. You can continue.
Okay. I think I timed it for about 2 hours, 1.5 to 2 hours, but it's taking a little longer than I thought.
Yeah, you can take it, sir. No problem.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So the next example is about adding figures and subfigures, right? So let's close this document, PDF, the text file. Let's open up the 4th example. Right. So in this example, what we're going to do is we're talking about adding figures and subfigures. Right. I'll show you what a subfigure is. So for this one, it's important that we have to use this package called graphics X package. It's just it is. Don't worry about why we're using it and things like that. Just add it into your document, right? And then also for subfigure particularly, you need to add this package as well, the subfigure package. We'll also be talking about the figure environment, so begin figure and end figure. Just like what we had, begin document, end document, begin equation, end equation. You have begin figure and end figure. And to actually add the figure, we need to do this command, include graphics. Then we'll see about adding captions and things like that, right? So this is what the goal for this example is. So let's go through the LaTeX file. Again, the top of the LaTeX file is exactly the same. Note that over here, previously I had AMS Math. Now I am having the graphics X package and the subfigure package, right? As you can add as many packages as you want, right? Depending on the utility that you're, the document that you want, right? So I'm not going to go over this. All this is the same example 3, same section. The next section is example 4, right? Now over here, before you add a document, right? Before you add a figure, LaTeX, you can handle different kinds of file extensions. So you can add a JPG file. You can also add a .eps file, an encapsulated PostScript format, right? This is a vector graphics. So, some people, vector graphics is very important when you're talking about scientific documents, right? So this is a vector document format, right? You can also add a JPG file. You can also even add a PNG file, right? Now, when you're adding that, just make sure that the images are stored in the same folder as your tech document, right? So in this document, I had my example 4. Also, I have the images that I want, right? So I had, what did I have? I had logo.eps. So I had the logo.eps, right? I also had scene1.jpg and asset logo.png, right? So scene1.jpg and asset logo.png. So it must be in the same folder as where you're running the tech file, right? I think there is a way to give a folder, the correct path instead of the relative path, right? But I have not used it as much. So I typically keep it in the same folder. Anyway, so that's one thing that you need to keep in mind. So one is the image format, and also where you're saving that file, right? So let's see how you do this, right? So again, I go have a new section now, right? Example 4. Here is a paragraph. Now, if I want to add a figure, right? Let me just comment this out. So I can comment it out. That is comment. So all this gets commented automatically. So I'm adding 2 figures here, right? I'm adding. So if the first thing you want to do when you're adding a figure is you want to call the begin figure environment, right? So there's a begin figure and there is the end figure, right? And this is again, it's a square bracket, so it's optional, right? There are 3 options here. I just put one option. I'm not going to go into much detail about this. There are 3 options called HTP. H stands for here, T means top of the page, and B means bottom of the page. So you can place your figure wherever you want, right? So for now, I'm just using H, right? Just place it wherever it is, right? Where LaTeX finds it suitable, right? I'm not going to control it, right? And then this command is just to tell it to center the figure, right? Centering. It's an optional command. You don't have to give it. And the main thing is this one, include graphics, right? Again, the option is here. There are some options you can do, right? And typically this is the basic one that I have. You can control the width of the image. It's like cropping the image, right? You can control the width and the height of the image that you want to place into your document, right? And typically, I always use a scale command because you want to maintain the aspect ratio, right? So you only want to scale the figure, right? So it's, scaling of less than 1 will make the figure smaller, and larger than 1 is going to make it bigger, right? So again, it's square brackets. So this is an optional command, not necessary, but within the curly brackets, you give the name of the file, right? So in this case, I have given logo.eps, right? And so this is an EPS file, right? And the caption, what I have given is the caption I want is ASET logo, right? So it's the same thing. I have 2 figures. I'm also adding scene1.jpg. The caption here is scenery, right? So this is in section 4. Let's just compile this document and see what it looks like. Right, so again, the same pages on top, right? The math part that I had, right? So now you see this, right? So in section 4, I have added these 2 figures. This is the ASET logo, right? I automatically got the figure number, right? Figure 1, and the caption is also put, and scenery, right? This is the scenery that I have, right? Now imagine if I want to make this slightly more bigger, I can scale it if I want to, right? So I'm just going to put a default scaling number as 1. Again, if I compile it, right, will become bigger, right? But you begin to see that, right? It has exceeded the margins, right? So typically LaTeX will give you a warning as well, right? If you look at the log window, it will show you a warning, but it will not give you an error, right? So you can still do it. So that's how you scale the image, right? So let's bring it back to 0.5. Where I can make it smaller as well, 0.25, right? And then just compile it, okay? It'll become much smaller, right? And so the nice thing is that the caption, the numbering of the figure, everything is done automatically. You don't have to worry about it. Now let's look at the subfigure command, right? So subfigure is something you often find in literature, right? And for that you need to use this package which you already put on top, right? Subfigure, right? So it's already there, so it will not complain, right? And I'm just going to uncomment all of this, right? So I'm going to have right. So I have the begin figure. Again, just like before, I'm taking the figure environment, right? I'm going to place it here, right? I want it in the center of the page, and I have my first subfigure, right? So first subfigure, the command is \subfigure. In square bracket, I give the caption of that subfigure, and then within the curly brackets, I give include graphics, and again the same 2 options, right? In this case, I'm going to add a .png file and the title of the image, right? ASET logo.png and the scale. And the second subfigure is the caption is 2, and the scale is 1, and the caption for the overall figure is 2 figures. So let's just compile it and see what it looks like. right? So figures in the sub-figure environment. LaTeX understood that there is no space over here, so it's automatically placing the second page, right? And I'll make it smaller just so that you know it's easy. So ASET logo dot, I'll make it 0.5. Right, I'll make this also smaller. Right. So you see this now, right? So I had two figures, right? Figure 1, figure 2 from before. Now I'm added the third figure, right? Third figure, but there are sub figures, 3A and 3B, right? And the caption of each is 1 and 2, right? And the total caption is 2 figures, right? The 2 figures that I had over here. Right. So this is how, and if I want, I can change the caption. I can write this first figure, recompile it, right? The caption will change, first figure, right? So you see this, right? You don't have to worry about, finer things like, caption and font size and things like that, right? So automatically taken care of, right? The alignment is taken care of. Figures, just a word of caution, it might take some time for you to get the hang of figures. Sometimes, you'll find that LaTeX gets place documents random. The image might come not exactly where you want it, right? But it's relative to the entire document, right? So you might find some problem, but with 1 or 2 times you'll get used to it. So that's about example number 4. About adding figures and subfigures. Now the next one, the next example that I want to talk about is adding table of contents, list of figures, and list of tables. This is any thesis, any report. You always have a table of contents, the list of figures, and the list of tables, and so on. Right. So in this case, I have not made any table, so we are not going to get any tables. Our tables might take a little more longer time, so I avoided this for today's session. Right. So let's just see what we're going to go through. It's actually very simple. There is nothing to do other than 3 lines, right, to create this. So we're just going to add these 3 keywords: table of contents, list of tables, list of figures, and all the work will get automatically done. Right. You don't have to worry about anything. Right. So let's just do it and see what happens. So let me close this text file and let's open example 5. Example 5. Right, so the top part of the document is exactly the same, no changes, right? Document class, the packages, the begin document, and now all this is the same, right? Everything over here is the same. Now, I want to place a table of contents, everything at the top, right? So immediately after the begin document, what I do is table of contents, this command, table of contents. Then I want to go list of tables. I want a new page, so I'm just going to go / new page, right? I want it on a new page. Otherwise, depending on the space, it might come out on the same page. Then list of tables, and then list of figures, right? All on new pages, right? And that's all, right? That's all I need to do. I don't have to do anything, right? Let's just see what the output looks like. That's it, right? So now automatically the table of contents page is created, right? Automatically LaTeX identifies that you had 3 sections or you had 4 sections. You had these subsections, you also had these subsections, right? And it adds the page number appropriately. It also adds these dots in automatically, right? So nothing to worry about. It's done just fine, right? And even if you change any section number, like now now if I want to go, instead of changing section 1, I want to type test for section 1, right? For section 1, right? You change the heading for section 1, but automatically it will get reflected in the table of contents as well, right? You don't have to worry about it, right? So sometimes you might have to compile it twice because the first time it is going through and the second time it's actually placing it, right? So test for section 1. Right? So if you're doing this in Word, you would have to go manually do it, right? You change the heading and section, and then you go to the table of contents and then edit it, right? Another benefit is, for example, you can also rearrange sections. Let's say, for example, let's say this is section 1 which comes first, but now what I want to do is I want to rearrange this section, right? I want to come after section 2, right? So I'm going to place it here. Right, right now, all the document gets aligned automatically. You don't have to worry about it. Table of contents is also set up appropriately. So we'll see what happens. So I'll compile it once more. Right. So you see that section 2 came first, then section 1 came first. And also your document also gets the same thing. Right. So we'll see that, right? So see section 2 came first, right? And then section 1 came. Right. So it's very simple, right? Now you only have to add 3 lines, right? For table of contents, just 1 line, just this 1 line. Right. Again, list of tables. This page is empty because there are no tables in here in this document. A list of figures. We added 3 figures, so the figure number comes automatically, and the page on which that figure is located also comes automatically. So we had 3 figures: asset logo, scenery, and 2 figures. Right. So that's on page number 6 and 7. Right. So this is on page number 6, and this comes in page number 7. Okay. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So let's do the think. There's the last example, right, which is about referencing, right? For example, so I hope this section's the table of contents is clear. Let's open up the last one which I have, which is example 6. So let's what I mean by referencing is, say for example, I want to refer a figure, right? You have a figure and then you want to write in your paragraph, you want to say that, referring figure 1, we can make a conclusion and so on, right? A statement like that in your paragraph. So you want to refer that figure that you added, or you want to say referring to equation number 1, right? How do you do that, right? So to do that, right, again, the top of the LaTeX document is exactly the same, nothing has changed. What do we do? So let's go to, right, example 6 right over here. So in example 5, we saw table of contents and list of tables. Example 6. Here what we're going to do is we are going to reference the figures, tables, and equations. So I have the sentence. In this sentence, we are referencing figure. We're going to use this command called \ref, right? \ref, and we're going to give a tag. So I'm going to go back to the equation that I had, this asset logo. This logo, and in addition to the caption, I'm going to keep this label for that equation, right? So the label is fig asset logo, right? So it identifies, it just tells, it's just for my convenience. Figure is not necessary, right? Just for my convenience, it's just a style I follow, right? It's a figure and it's asset logo, right? So I'm just going to, so I have labeled that figure over here, right? And I'm going to reference it in my paragraph as asset logo. Same thing with scenery, right? I have put a label as scenery. I have labeled that scenery as label scenery, right? Underneath the caption. And then I'm referencing it over here. And also I'm going to refer an equation. For that, I'm going to use this command, eqref, right? \eqref. And I have a label. I'm going to show you that, summation demo, right? So I have put a label. So after my equation, so we saw this equation, this limit equation, right? After that, I'm putting this keyword as label. Label, and I'm labeling this equation, right? So I can refer it in future, right? So I referred it within my paragraph. So let's just see what the output looks like. Again, over here also, you might have to compile it twice just to get the numbering correct. Sometimes that is needed. Right. So let's just see again, the content looks exactly what we had before, except in section number 6, right? This comes. In this section, we are referencing figure 1 and 2 and equation number 2, right? So figure 1 and 2 was figure 1 and figure 2. Figure 1 was this, figure 2 was this. And equation number 2, right? Equation number 2 was this equation, right? And the beauty of this is, it doesn't matter if I change the order of the equations, right? Say for example, I don't want this equation to come over here. I want to make this equation come later on, right? So I don't have to so now the equation order will all change, but I don't have to change the referencing, because initially this was equation 2, now it will become some other number, but I don't have to rework my entire document. All the numbering gets done automatically, right? And let's see the output, right? right? So we'll have to compile it again. Right. So now my equation is this equation. Now it has become. I'll just right. So now before what was equation 2 has become equation 3 now, right? So you'll see that it has become equation 3. Right. So this is about referencing, and this is something that we do very often. And this is one of the main advantages of LaTeX as well. Like, often when you write your document, you will have equations in a certain order or your figures in a certain order. And then when you're editing it, then you want to move the order, change the order of the figures. Then you'll have to go throughout your document. If there are 50 places where you're referencing that figure, you'll have to go to every place and change it. Right. So that gets tedious, right? I think in the later versions of LaTeX of Word, you can get away with it, but it's still, I find it's a little cumbersome, right? So that's it. So that's the last example that I had. So you don't have to worry about rearranging figures, tables, sections. You can refer anything, right? I have only shown you about referencing figures and equations. You can also refer sections, tables, and anything like that as well. Okay. So that's it. So we can do much more in LaTeX, right? You can add a bibliography, you can add footnotes, you can control if you want single spacing or double spacing, you can control the page numbers where you want it, whether you want it or not, you can draw shapes in LaTeX, you can add tables. This is a very important part which I've not shown you, right? You can also do centralizing, left aligning, right aligning. And also, purists in LaTeX, people who, decide that they'll only use LaTeX, they even make PowerPoint presentations, They won't make a PowerPoint presentation, not a PPT file, but they'll use what is called as a Beamer file, a Beamer class, and they'll get documents that look very good. It's an alternative to PowerPoint. So just to I'll show you 2 examples that, for my lecture notes and when I'm teaching, I use LaTeX for creating my notes, right? So this is just a sample document, right? So for example, see, I have this header over here. I have a logo, I'm centralizing this. I'm creating tables, right? And, things like this, right? So I'm having sections, section numbers, subsections, equations, right? Things like this, right? So these are all sample documents that you can make in LaTeX. Right, I changed the page number instead of the to center. I changed it to the right, and it just sometimes you need need to be a little good at googling things as well, right? I'll show you another example for another lecture that I made, right? So this one again had this one had figures in it, right? So I can add a figure. I can reference figures. So you see this, I am having figure 1, figure 3, and so on, right? So I can do all this in LaTeX, right? So this again, I was lazy to type up this equation, so I just took it from the textbook. So I just copy pasted that image as is, right? So you can do all this in LaTeX, right? So it's quite again, like I said, the learning curve is a little steep, but the final output that you get is really worth it. Now, coming back, now in the past few years, what people have done is they have gotten away from installing things, right? There are online editors as well, but it only requires a stable net connection that might be needed. So if you go to overleaf.com or share LaTeX, you don't have to do any of the installation part. Right, you don't have to download MikTeX, you don't have to download the editor or anything like that. You can create a document on Overleaf and start typing it. Right, it provides an online editor and an online text processor. Right, so the main benefit is that there are no installation issues and a lot of default templates are also there. So you can save some time, but you still need to know moderate amount of LaTeX commands, right? For example, going into the math mode or underlining things or bolding things, you still need to do a little bit of that, right? But you'll get good templates, right? For example, you can by default you can get maybe let's see if I can have a document. I don't have that, but I had an example of a document that I created with Overleaf. But, there's a lot of color and things like that. When you're trying to do manually, it might be a little tedious, but when you do in Overleaf, there are a lot of good templates, and you can start adding color to your documents and look 3-column formats and things like that will look nicer. You can make it to landscape mode, so it's a little bit more easy. So anyway, just to conclude our talk, LaTeX, it initially does seem daunting, right? But you get more comfortable the more you use it, right? My advice to all of you is if you're starting off with LaTeX, do very simple documents, right? Like I said, like in example one, right? Whatever you type in Word, just copy paste it into LaTeX and get familiar with compiling and getting their output out, right? And it's not possible that you know everything in LaTeX. I don't think everyone knows it like that, right? So what I do is typically, if I find that there is something that I want to do, I just refer online and I find a solution for it, and I just implement it. So recently, what I was doing was I want to include hyperlinks into my document, right? So for example, my PDF file, if I click on it, if I click on that hyperlink, it directly goes to a website. I didn't know how to do it, but I just Googled online and I found a solution for it, right? That's it, right? But the effort, I tell you, is usually much better. You get a lot more satisfaction with the quality of the document that you get. And these are some of the references. And this last one is the book that I told you, right? It's available freely. And there are just various tutorials are there online, right? So with that, thank you. Thank you. I know I have gone much about time. It's almost 2 hours. Thank you for patiently listening. And this is just a photograph from our campus, right? So if there are any questions, I'll take it up now. Questions?
Participants, any questions, please discuss.
Do you have any reference material to prepare PPT using LaTeX? My suggestion is it's something called the Beamer. I'll just give a link for it. I personally have not used this. So I'll just give you this link. I don't know the quality of this. I'm just sharing it. But people do use this. When I was a graduate student, I had friends who used to make this. Right? But again, I'll tell you, right? It's not the final output is not a PPT, right? It's not a PPT file. What you get is a .pdf file. But the output is quite good, right? So yeah, so you can just search for it online. You search for Beamer and LaTeX, and you'll get friends. Any other questions?
So I have one question.
Sure.
So how we can embed a bibliography file into the LaTeX? So whenever
Right.
we write such paper, we have to write down references at the end. Okay.
Right.
So how it in the LaTeX, sir?
Right. So let me see if I have a file for it or not. I actually didn't prepare for that, but let's see if I have it with me. There is a way to do it. Right. I don't have a document with me right now, but what you can do is there is a command called I think /bibliography. If you do this, and there is one more command, I forget the exact command. It will automatically populate the references. So what you do is, you create a .bib file, right? I had it on my old laptop. I actually switched my laptop, so the file is not there. So what you can do is you can use these softwares called Jabref or Mendeley, and you can get a .bib file. So you save everything in that bib file, and then you can just import that. You can call that bib file into your LaTeX document. So after this /bibliography, you will include that command called your bib file, right? And it automatically populate all your references, right? The way you call the order in which you're calling it in the document, right? So the command, again, the command is cite. If you're citing a reference in your document, you will use \cite, and then you'll put your reference to it. So in your bib file, you'll always have some BibTeX key for every reference. Let's say I'm calling one paper, some paper is called paper 1, right, in that software, right? Again, I don't have that software installed as well. At least I've shown it to you. So you will call that paper 1. You will go \cite paper 1, right? And it will automatically call from that bibliography, and it will populate it within your document. And you'll typically put it at the end of your document. Does that make sense?
Okay, sir. Yeah, got it.
I'm sorry, I don't have a document. I had it. I thought I had it. Maybe I didn't switch everything onto my to the new laptop.
So, this is enough for me. Can go through it.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you.
And sir, one more doubt regarding the bibliography, sir.
Right.
Sir, during the citation, if in the
Right.
Harvard style they are telling that author name, comma, year.
Right.
Yeah, if you use this command /cite, it will get
Right.
only that number 1, 2, 3 like that. If you want the author
Right.
name along with the year, what shall we do for the Harvard style?
That's a good question. I actually don't know the answer to that because I've always been using the IEEE style. So that's typically all the documents that we create, and I'll have to look it up actually online. I'm not quite sure.
Okay, sir.
Because
when I doing the research paper work, they're
right.
asking the Harvard style with this type of citation.
Right. Maybe some of these references might help. I'll have to go through it. Right. So this is what you mean, right? Like this, right? The author and
Yeah,
this
yes,
one,
sir. Yes,
right?
sir.
So maybe you can refer this document. I'll share it right now. Maybe you can go through this document. Maybe it will help.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot.
Anish sir is saying that there is a bibliography style to it. Maybe there is. Anish sir, maybe very familiar with it.
Yes, sir. In the bibliography style, what style you want, you can put it, sir. So
in this
that way you
command,
can
in this
take it.
command /bibliography.
Yeah. Actually, if you want if you in else article template, they follow certain pattern. If you put that particular style in that actually / bibliography style in the curly bracket else article /number, then
Okay,
it will your referencing will be look like that only.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right. Okay. So thank you. I didn't know that because I'm not used to it. So maybe if you want, if you type it in the chat box, maybe that madam will find it helpful.
Yes, sir. Can you please type it, sir? Anish, sir.
Yeah. Okay, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, sir. Because I find it very difficult for that type of Harvard styling citation.
Okay. Again, like I said, a lot of things in LaTeX is based on a need-based learning, right? If you want something, you'll Google it and you'll find it. If not, you're happy the way the document is, right? So, and people do a lot of things with, like, for example, I've been making my curriculum vitae in LaTeX, right? So, Anisa, can you give the options as well? Bibliography style. You're saying something, right? Yeah, maybe this is what it's Anisa is saying. So /1145. Maybe right. So this is what I think Anisa is saying. So / bibliography style AGSM. right? And you need to use this package called natbib, right, for this particular style. Maybe there's another way. This is just one way to do it, right? Maybe there are other ways to do it as well. Right? So yeah, so if there are no further questions, I think, any other questions? If not, thank you all. Shweta miss, I think that's it.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Oh, Santosh, okay, all right.
Thank you for your valuable time, sir. The sessions are very informative. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. All right. I would appreciate it if I could get the feedback from the participants, right? Balamurugan sir, if you can share the feedback with me, that would be nice. Just
Yeah,
so
sure.
that,
Sure, sir. The session-wise feedback is taken. I will share it. I will share it with you.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Participants, please, tomorrow's session will start at 9:30 exactly. Please be ready at 9:20 itself. Tomorrow, please fill the feedback form right now.
All right. So thank you. I'm quitting. Right?
So I'm Dr. Vaini. I think I met you, sir. Do you remember?
Sorry, who's speaking?
I'm Dr. Vaini from Amrita College.
Oh, madam.
Engineering. Yeah.
Right.
Your talk is very impressive. If you arrange some webinar for PG students, it will be very useful because they are struggling with how to write the paper, thesis, all PowerPoint presentation, everything. So if you arrange it for exclusively for PG students, it will be very much useful. This is my opinion.
Oh, sure. Okay. Sure, not a problem.
Okay, sir.
Okay. All right. Thank you, madam.
Okay.
So Balamurugan sir, I can leave, right?
Yeah, please, sir.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, we will think about it later.
Thank you.
Okay. Participants, please fill the feedback form right now.